The night she screamed my name wasn't the night I lost her, it was the night I understood I never really had her. Some truths arrive like thunder, others like the slow drip of water that eventually carves canyons through stone. Mine was both. After 15 years of marriage, I thought I knew every contour of my wife's soul. I was wrong. My name is Marcus Holt. I'm 41, and until 3 months ago, I believed my life was exactly what I'd built it to be: solid, secure, successful. I own Sentinel Shield, a high-end security consulting firm that caters to people who can afford to keep their secrets hidden and their vulnerabilities protected. Politicians with skeletons, executives with enemies, celebrities with stalkers, they all come to me. I know how to find their weak points before anyone else can exploit them. It's what I've done since leaving the military 15 years ago. Ironic, isn't it? I spent my days identifying vulnerabilities for others while being completely blind to the one that existed in my own home. My wife, Sienna, always drew attention when she entered a room. At 38, she carried herself with the same poise and quiet confidence that had made her successful during her modeling years. Now she ran an exclusive interior design firm, transforming the homes of our wealthy clients into showcases that appeared in glossy magazines. We were the power couple of Boston's elite circle, me providing security, her providing beauty. A perfect partnership, I thought. Are you even listening to me, Marcus? Sienna asked one evening in early September. We were having dinner at Maison Laurent, the French restaurant downtown where we celebrated every anniversary. Except this wasn't our anniversary. Of course, I replied, though I'd been scanning the room out of habit, noting exit points and analyzing the other diners. She sighed, setting down her fork with precision. I said the Monaco project has been extended. I'll need to fly back next week for another 10 days. That was the third trip in 2 months. The restaurant's chandeliers cast a golden glow across her face, highlighting her high cheekbones and the flawless application of makeup that enhanced rather than masked her features. The Beaumont Hotel again? I asked, taking a sip of my bourbon. Yes. They've expanded the scope to include the executive suites. It's a significant increase to the contract. A slight smile played at the corners of her mouth. Adrian thinks we can finish everything by November if we push. Adrian. The name registered faintly. The architect on the project, I recalled. She'd mentioned him several times since the Monaco work began in July. Sounds like good business, I said, noticing how her eyes brightened at the mention of his name. I filed that away, just another data point. Nothing more. It's not just good business, Marcus. It's extraordinary work. Adrian's vision for the space is revolutionary. The integration of natural elements with technological innovation. She continued, animated in a way I rarely saw at home. I nodded, listening to technical details I didn't fully understand but noting the passion in her voice. When had she last spoken about one of our shared experiences with such enthusiasm? You could come with me, she suggested, though her tone carried no real expectation that I would. The Thompson contract is entering its critical phase. I can't leave the team right now. Relief flashed across her face so quickly I almost missed it. Almost. Of course. I understand. And that was that. Another business dinner, another period of separation that had become our normal. I paid the bill, and we walked to the car in comfortable silence. At least, I thought it was comfortable. 3 days later, she left for Monaco. I drove her to the airport, carried her bags to the check-in counter, and kissed her goodbye, a practiced routine we'd performed dozens of times before. Call me when you land, I said. I will. She straightened my tie, a habitual gesture. Try to get some actual sleep while I'm gone. I smiled. No promises. I watched her walk through security, her posture perfect, her movements efficient. She didn't look back. That night, I worked late at the office, reviewing security protocols for a senator whose daughter had received concerning messages online. Around midnight, my phone pinged with a text. Landed safely. Hotel as beautiful as always. Meeting Adrian for breakfast to review plans. Talk tomorrow. I texted back a simple sleep well and set my phone aside. The Thompson contract consumed the next week. I slept at the office more often than at home, coordinating with my team as we implemented new security measures for a tech billionaire's compound. Sienna and I exchanged brief texts, sometimes a short call where she described the progress on the hotel project. Adrian's name came up frequently. On the 8th day of her trip, I returned home around 8 p.m., a rare early night. The house felt hollow without her 5,000 square feet of perfect design with no soul present. I poured myself a drink and wandered into her home office, something I rarely did when she was home. She kept her workspace meticulous, every item in its place. I don't know what made me notice the wineglass. It sat on her desk, lipstick smudged on the rim, a droplet of red wine dried at the bottom. Strange. The cleaning service had come the day before she left. This glass shouldn't have been here. I picked it up, examining the distinctive mark her red lipstick had left. Something crunched under my shoe. I looked down to find a small shard of glass on the floor. Moving the chair, I discovered more fragments, the broken stem of a second wineglass. 2 glasses. 1 broken. In a house that had been empty for 8 days. I set the intact glass down exactly as I'd found it and left the room, closing the door behind me. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew I didn't like it. The next evening, I received a call from Sienna. "I'm coming home tomorrow instead of Wednesday," she said, her voice light. The final approvals came through early. "That's great," I replied. "Same flight time?" "No, I managed to get an earlier one. I'll land at 2 p.m. instead of 7. Don't worry about picking me up, I'll take a car service. I can reschedule my afternoon." "No need," she cut in quickly. "You've been swamped with the Thompson contract. I'll see you at home for dinner." After we hung up, I sat in my office, staring at the Boston skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. 15 years of marriage had taught me Sienna's patterns. She always wanted me to pick her up from the airport after a long trip. Always. The next day, I told my assistant I'd be working remotely in the afternoon. At 2:30 p.m., I was parked in the arrivals area at Logan International, watching passengers stream through the automatic doors. At 2:45, I spotted her, sunglasses on despite the overcast day, pulling her designer luggage with one hand while checking her phone with the other. I considered getting out of the car, surprising her, but something held me back. Instead, I watched as she approached the line of waiting taxis and town cars. A black SUV pulled up. The driver got out, not a typical car service employee. He was tall, well-dressed in dark jeans and a button-down shirt, with the confident posture of someone comfortable in his own skin. When he turned to open the passenger door, I caught his profile. Sienna's face transformed when she saw him. The polite, composed expression she wore in public melted into something raw and genuine. She moved toward him with an eagerness I hadn't seen in years, perhaps ever. He took her luggage, said something that made her laugh, then leaned down and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss. Not a colleague's greeting. His hand curved around her waist with familiar intimacy as he guided her into the SUV. The world around me seemed to dim, sounds fading as I watched them drive away. I sat there for a long time, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Everything felt cold and distant, like I was watching someone else's life unravel. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. I already knew who he was. Adrian. I drove back to my office, mind calculating with mechanical precision. By the time I reached my desk, I had already formulated my first steps. I called in Joel, my most trusted security analyst. "I need information on someone," I said, voice steady. "Adrian Locke. Architect. Working on the Beaumont Hotel project in Monaco." Joel nodded, asking no questions. That's why I valued him. Everything. Professional history, financial status, personal relationships. Full background. "Timeline?" he asked. "Yesterday." As Joel left, my phone buzzed with a text from Sienna, "Just landed. Taking a car home. See you for dinner around 7? I stared at the message, at the casual lie delivered so effortlessly. Then I typed back, looking forward to it. Missed you. And as I set the phone down, I realized that the man who had kissed my wife, this Adrian, wasn't the true betrayer. He was just the evidence of a betrayal that had happened long before, in silent increments I had failed to notice. The game had changed. And though Sienna didn't know it yet, she was now playing on my territory. The dossier on Adrian Locke arrived on my desk by morning. Joel had worked through the night, compiling everything available on the man who had kissed my wife. Adrian Locke, 36 years old, graduate of Yale School of Architecture, rising star in sustainable luxury design. His portfolio included resorts in Thailand, private estates in the Alps, and now the prestigious Beaumont Hotel renovation in Monaco. Awards, accolades, features in Architectural Digest all painted the picture of a brilliant professional. What interested me more were the personal details: never married, residences in New York and recently acquired property in Nice, regular donations to environmental charities, and a trail of relationships with accomplished, beautiful women who never seemed to last longer than 8 months. I studied the photographs Joel had included. Adrian had the casual confidence of someone who had never questioned his place in the world, artfully tousled dark hair, attentive eyes, the kind of smile photographers love. Looking at him, I understood what Sienna saw, everything I wasn't. Where I was disciplined, he appeared spontaneous; where I was reserved, he seemed expressive. The contrast was almost too perfect. What else? I asked Joel when he arrived for our morning briefing. Financial records show substantial income but irregular spending patterns. He appears to live below his means in some areas while splurging extravagantly in others. Joel hesitated before continuing. There's also evidence of communication between him and Mrs. Holt dating back approximately 4 months, predating the Monaco project. The timeline shifted in my mind, pieces rearranging themselves. 4 months. Longer than I had suspected. What kind of communication? Primarily professional at first, then increasingly personal. They met at a design conference in Chicago where he was a keynote speaker. Chicago. February. Sienna had gone alone while I handled a security crisis for a client in Washington. She had returned energized, talking about new connections and opportunities. I had listened with half an attention, preoccupied with my own work. Had it started then? Those first sparks of something that would grow into betrayal? The hotel project came through his recommendation, Joel continued. He specifically requested her firm. Orchestrated from the beginning, then. I nodded, dismissing Joel to continue his investigation into Adrian's professional background. Something there might provide leverage when the time came. For 3 days, I maintained normalcy at home. Sienna and I moved through our routines, parallel lives that occasionally intersected over morning coffee or evening meals. She spoke enthusiastically about the Monaco project, carefully editing out any personal references to Adrian while I pretended not to notice the light in her eyes when his name occasionally slipped through. The 4th night after her return, I accessed the communications network of my own company remotely. The irony wasn't lost on me, using the very systems I had built to protect others' privacy to invade my wife's. Within minutes, I had every message, every call, every digital footprint between them. Reading their exchanges was like watching someone else's life played out in text. Her messages to him revealed a woman I barely recognized, passionate, vulnerable, alive in ways she never seemed with me. They had been careful, using secure channels and code words, but the meaning was unmistakable in context. The safe is suffocating me. I need air. You are the most extraordinary woman. He keeps you like a painting behind glass. When can I see you again? Really see you? The final confirmation came from our home security system. While reviewing footage from the days before Sienna's most recent trip, I discovered what the broken wine glass had suggested: Adrian had been in our home. They had been careful to avoid most cameras, but a single frame captured them entering her office, his hand at the small of her back in a gesture of casual intimacy that struck me like a physical blow. That night, as Sienna slept beside me, I made my decision. This would end, but not with shouting or accusations. I would dismantle their relationship with the same methodical precision I applied to every security operation. Starting with Adrian Locke. Finding Adrian proved easier than expected. His architectural firm maintained a predictable schedule of site visits, and within 2 days of surveillance, I identified his pattern. The rooftop of his current project, a luxury mixed-use development downtown, became his sanctuary each evening around sunset. He would spend approximately 30 minutes alone there, reviewing plans or simply contemplating the skyline before heading back to his temporary Boston apartment. The security at his building was adequate but not designed to keep out someone with my expertise. I arrived on the rooftop 20 minutes before his usual appearance, positioning myself near the mechanical room that housed the HVAC systems. The evening air carried the promise of autumn, crisp and clear as I waited patiently in the shadows. Adrian arrived precisely on schedule, stepping onto the rooftop with the confident stride of a man who believed he controlled his environment. The fading sunlight caught his profile as he walked to the edge, hands in his pockets, surveying the city below like an artist admiring his canvas. He never sensed my presence until I deliberately made a sound, shifting my weight to alert him without startling him into a potentially dangerous reaction. "Beautiful view," I remarked casually, stepping forward into his line of sight. Recognition flashed immediately across his features. He knew exactly who I was. That confirmed my suspicion that Sienna had shared photographs, stories, perhaps even confidences about our marriage. "Mr. Holt," he acknowledged, maintaining remarkable composure for a man suddenly confronted by the husband of his lover. "I wondered when this moment would come." "Did you? Most people in your position prefer to believe it never will." Adrian straightened his shoulders, neither retreating nor advancing. "I respect you enough not to pretend ignorance or offer insincere apologies." "How considerate," I responded, maintaining a conversational tone while studying him closely. His eyes revealed calculation behind the artistic exterior. This man was no impulsive romantic but someone who made deliberate choices. "Tell me something, Adrian. When you entered my home while I was away, did you consider the security implications or was violating my privacy simply an added thrill?" His expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "She invited me. It was her home too. Legally, half hers. Functionally, entirely my security system." I moved closer, matching his height but carrying myself with the unmistakable presence of someone who understood physical confrontation. "Your professional background makes for interesting reading. Innovative designs, prestigious clients, several instances of borrowed concepts from less established architects without proper attribution." The slight widening of his eyes told me Joel had found valuable information. "Those accusations were dismissed." "Not dismissed. Settled quietly with non-disclosure agreements. The same pattern applies to your financial arrangements with subcontractors on the Singapore Pavilion project. Creative accounting that barely stays within legal boundaries." Adrian's artistic confidence faltered, replaced by wariness. "What exactly do you want from this conversation, Marcus?" "Clarity," I answered simply. "You pursued my wife knowing she was married. You entered my home knowing it was a breach of trust. Now I want you to understand something with perfect clarity. Your relationship with Sienna ends today." "That decision belongs to Sienna," he countered, attempting to reclaim moral high ground. "Perhaps. But your continued presence in her life would have significant professional consequences for you both. The Beaumont Hotel owners value discretion above all. How would they react to evidence of improper bid allocation or the numerous building code variances you've requested without proper documentation?" His face paled slightly. "You would destroy her reputation too." "No," I corrected him calmly. "I would ensure only you faced consequences. Sienna would be portrayed as the unwitting professional drawn into your pattern of ethical shortcuts. Unless, of course, you choose to disappear from her life completely." Adrian stared at me, searching for weakness or bluff and finding neither. "She deserves better than either of us. On that single point, we agree." I handed him an envelope containing detailed evidence of his professional vulnerabilities. 24 hours to end all communication with my wife and withdraw from the Monaco project. After that, these documents find their way to licensing boards and clients. I left him standing on the rooftop, envelope clutched in his hand, the architect suddenly forced to contemplate the demolition of everything he had built. The next morning, Sienna received the call I had anticipated. Her phone rang during breakfast, a meal we had been sharing in near-complete silence for weeks. She glanced at the screen, excused herself with practiced poise, and walked into her office. Through the security system I had activated throughout our home, I listened as Adrian delivered his carefully rehearsed goodbye. He explained that he was withdrawing from the Beaumont project, cited professional complications, and suggested she distance herself from him professionally. When she pressed for real answers, his responses became evasive, his tone distant. By the time she emerged from her office 30 minutes later, her composure had fractured visibly around the edges. "Everything all right?" I inquired neutrally, finishing my coffee without looking up from the financial news on my tablet. "Adrian has withdrawn from the Monaco project," she responded, her voice carefully controlled. "Apparently there are suddenly conflicts of interest he never mentioned before." Her fingers tapped in agitated rhythm against the kitchen counter as she struggled to maintain her professional veneer. "The timing is suspicious. The clients are furious. Our entire design approach relied on his architectural vision." I nodded with calculated sympathy. Professional relationships can be unpredictable. Perhaps someone made him a better offer. Her eyes narrowed slightly, studying my face with newfound suspicion. Perhaps. The collapse of the Beaumont project represented merely the opening move in a strategy one had meticulously planned during sleepless nights. Within 48 hours, Adrian had left the country, his reputation in elite design circles beginning to unravel through carefully placed rumors and strategic information leaks that could never be traced back to me. Simultaneously, I arranged for key investors to withdraw from Sienna's upcoming projects, citing concerns about management stability and deadline commitments. The financial strain on her design firm became apparent within weeks. Clients began canceling consultations, industry colleagues suddenly became unavailable for collaborative ventures, and the glossy magazine features that normally showcased her work mysteriously disappeared from publication schedules. Through carefully controlled information channels, I ensured that professional concerns, not personal scandal, appeared to drive the growing isolation surrounding her business. Watching Sienna navigate these professional setbacks revealed dimensions of her character I had never fully appreciated during our marriage. Her resilience manifested in long nights at her office, desperate attempts to salvage client relationships, and innovative redesigns proposed to replace Adrian's contributions. She fought with a determination that would have impressed me under different circumstances, completely unaware that her opponent was sleeping beside her every night. Throughout this period, I maintained the appearance of a supportive husband, offering sympathy for her professional troubles while systematically dismantling her business connections through invisible interventions. The contradiction created an emotional dissonance that manifested physically: weight loss, sleepless nights, and moments when her typically flawless composure cracked completely. "Something feels wrong about all of this," she confessed one evening, staring out our living room window at the city lights below. "Everything started falling apart simultaneously: Adrian, the Beaumont contract, even clients I've worked with for years suddenly disappearing." "Business can be cyclical," I offered reasonably, watching her reflection in the window glass. "Perhaps you need to consider a different direction." She turned toward me with unexpected directness. "You know something about this, don't you? This synchronized collapse feels orchestrated." "What exactly are you suggesting, Sienna?" I maintained my composure, neither confirming nor denying her accusation. "I understand punishment when I see it, Marcus," she stated flatly. "This situation carries your signature precision. The question is why?" The moment had arrived sooner than anticipated. I considered continuing the pretense but recognized that Sienna's intelligence deserved acknowledgement. "Perhaps you should ask yourself what actions might warrant such consequences." Understanding dawned in her eyes, not fear but recognition. "You know about Adrian." "I know everything about Adrian," I confirmed calmly. "The hotel meetings, the late-night calls, his visit to our home while I was in Washington." Her posture changed subtly, shoulders straightening as if preparing for battle rather than collapsing in shame. "So this systematic destruction of my professional life is your response? Calculated revenge without even the courtesy of confrontation?" You made me a stranger long before I became one, I responded, standing to face her directly. Consider this the response of the stranger you created. The weeks following our confrontation transformed our home into a battlefield of silence. Sienna and I occupied the same physical space while existing in completely separate emotional realms. Professional devastation had changed her, the polished facade cracked to reveal someone more authentic than the woman I had lived with for 15 years. Her makeup appeared less perfect, her designer clothes replaced by casual attire, her practiced smile abandoned entirely. Strangely, this unraveled version of my wife seemed more genuine than the curated perfection I had married. Divorce proceedings began with predictable efficiency. Our lawyers exchanged documents while we exchanged nothing but necessary courtesies. The house went on the market, our belongings categorized for division, our shared life systematically dismantled with the same precision I had applied to destroying her connection with Adrian. Throughout this process, something unexpected occurred within me, the satisfaction of revenge gradually hollowed into something resembling emptiness. The final night in our home arrived inevitably. Most furniture had already been removed, leaving echoing spaces where our life together had played out. Rain tapped steadily against the windows as I packed the last of my personal items from the master bedroom. The sound of Sienna entering registered before her voice. I never expected this ending for us, she said from the doorway, makeup smeared slightly from the rain, hair damp against her shoulders. She looked more beautiful in her dishevelment than she ever had in perfection. All those years building something that could collapse so completely. What exactly did we build, Sienna? The question emerged without bitterness, genuine curiosity replacing anger that had sustained me for months. A partnership based on parallel existences? A marriage where neither of us truly saw the other? She moved into the room, sitting on the edge of the bare mattress. You provided security. I provided appearance. We created an impressive facade for others to admire while living behind walls neither of us had the courage to breach. Her assessment struck with uncomfortable accuracy. The controlled environment I had constructed around our marriage had become a prison for us both, my emotional reticence building barriers as impenetrable as any security system I had designed for clients. Why Adrian? The question had lingered unasked throughout our separation. Sienna considered this thoughtfully, her response surprisingly honest. He asked questions about me that you stopped asking years ago. He seemed interested in my thoughts rather than my contributions to our shared image. Perhaps most importantly, he appeared vulnerable in ways you never allowed yourself to be. The truth of her assessment penetrated defenses I had maintained since my military days. My protection had become isolation, my strength had become distance. The security consultant who identified vulnerabilities in others had refused to acknowledge his own. I apologize for the way I retaliated, I admitted, surprising myself with the sincerity behind the words. Destroying your professional reputation was disproportionate to your betrayal. Was it? Sienna questioned, meeting my gaze directly. You dismantled my career the way I dismantled our marriage, systematically, without direct confrontation, allowing something to die slowly rather than facing it honestly. Perhaps we deserved each other. The parallel had never occurred to me before this moment. My methodical revenge mirrored exactly the emotional withdrawal that had characterized our relationship for years. We had both chosen indirect destruction over vulnerable communication. What happens now? I asked, genuine uncertainty replacing strategic calculation for the first time in months. You always kept me safe, Marcus, she answered with unexpected gentleness. I just never knew from what until now. The safety you provided became suffocation because neither of us recognized the difference between protection and connection. Her insight crystallized something fundamental about my approach to relationships. The professional expertise that made me exceptional at protecting others had prevented me from truly connecting with the one person I claimed to love most. I would like to believe we both deserved better than what we gave each other, I offered, extending something resembling forgiveness. Perhaps that's the most generous conclusion to our story, Sienna agreed, standing to leave. She paused at the doorway, turning back with newfound clarity in her expression. Whatever comes next for you, Marcus, remember that protecting someone from the world means nothing if you never let them see you. Her words lingered in the empty house long after she departed, raising questions about protection versus connection that would follow me beyond the end of our marriage. 6 months after finalizing our divorce, I found myself standing on a clifftop overlooking the Atlantic in Lisbon, Portugal. The decision to relocate internationally had surprised my colleagues and clients, but the need for distance from Boston had become essential for my personal reconstruction. Sentinel Shield continued operations under Joel's capable management while I established a smaller, more selective security consultancy focused on personal protection rather than corporate espionage. The irony of this professional shift was not lost on me. Having failed spectacularly at protecting my own personal life, I had redirected my expertise toward helping others safeguard theirs. The Portuguese apartment I purchased offered simplicity and authenticity rather than the calculated perfection of my former home. Weathered wooden floors, whitewashed walls, and windows that opened to ocean breezes replaced the climate-controlled environment I had previously maintained. Each morning, I walked to a neighborhood cafe where the owner greeted me by name, engaging me in conversations that gradually improved my Portuguese while teaching me the value of casual human connection. Professional transformation accompanied these personal changes. My new firm, Lighthouse Security, operated with transparency and communication as foundational principles. Clients received comprehensive explanations rather than mysterious solutions. Team members were encouraged to voice concerns rather than execute orders blindly. The company grew slowly but solidly, building relationships based on trust rather than fear or intimidation. Through careful legal maneuvers and anonymous financial contributions, I gradually rebuilt the professional foundations that my revenge had stripped from Sienna. Design competitions mysteriously reopened to her submissions, potential clients received recommendations from respected industry sources, the magazine features that had disappeared suddenly expressed renewed interest in her work. These reparations occurred without my name attached, a silent acknowledgement of the disproportionate damage my calculated vengeance had inflicted. News of Sienna reached me occasionally through mutual acquaintances. Her design firm had recovered and rebranded, moving away from ultra-luxury projects toward innovative spaces for artistic communities and educational institutions. Adrienne remained absent from her professional and personal life, whether from continued fear of my intervention or genuine recognition of the relationship's fundamental impropriety remained unknown. According to those who knew her, Sienna appeared more authentic and engaged than during our marriage, the polished perfection replaced by passionate creativity. On the anniversary of our divorce finalization, an envelope arrived at my Lisbon office bearing a Boston postmark. Inside, I found a simple note in Sienna's distinctive handwriting: "The exhibition opens next month. Your contribution made it possible. Thank you for learning to protect without controlling." Accompanying the note was an invitation to the opening of a community arts center she had designed in an underserved Boston neighborhood, her first major project since our separation. Standing on that Portuguese cliff edge, watching waves crash against ancient rocks below, I contemplated attending the exhibition opening. The prospect of seeing Sienna again stirred complex emotions that defied the neat categorization I typically imposed on my experiences. The man who had discovered his wife's betrayal would have analyzed the tactical advantages of appearance versus absence. The man I was becoming recognized the opportunity for closure in genuine human connection. The flight to Boston felt like traversing more than mere geography, a journey backward through time while carrying forward the lessons painfully acquired. The Community Arts Center Sienna had designed captured her evolution perfectly. Where her previous work had emphasized exclusivity and perfection, this space celebrated accessibility and authentic expression. Natural light flowed through thoughtfully positioned windows, creating an environment that felt simultaneously protective and open. I observed Sienna from across the crowded exhibition hall, noting how she engaged with attendees, present and attentive in ways she had rarely been during our marriage. When our eyes finally met across the space, her momentary surprise yielded to a genuine smile and measured approach. "You came," she acknowledged, maintaining comfortable distance between us. "Your invitation seemed sincere," I responded, studying the woman who had once been my wife. "The space is remarkable, protection without isolation." "A concept I learned through difficult experience," she replied with knowing emphasis. We walked through the exhibition together, discussing the architectural elements without resurrecting personal history. As evening concluded and guests departed, Sienna turned to me with characteristic directness. "What did you learn, Marcus?" The question deserved thoughtful consideration rather than practiced response. That security without vulnerability creates prisons rather than sanctuaries. That protection means nothing without connection. She nodded slightly, satisfaction evident in her expression. Then perhaps neither of us wasted those 15 years entirely. As I returned to my new life in Lisbon, carrying forward lessons painfully acquired through betrayal and revenge, one truth remained clearer than all others: you can protect someone from the world, but if you never let them see you, they will always run towards someone who does.